Hi, ever wonder what it's like to work another profession or live in the underworld? Listen to unsuspecting riders give a 10 to 15 minute personal masterclass as I spontaneously interview them as they enter my taxi. I'm your host, Simon Rushton, and this is Taxi Chronicles. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we're blessed for those music lovers, for a music writer and instrument player, and he's going to share with us his knowledge and experience of how he got to where he is and what motivates him. So nice to have you here today.
Hello, it's Simon, wasn't
Yes,
it?
it's Simon.
Yes, hello Simon. Well, it's Matt Johnson from the here. I've just got in an Uber with a very friendly chap. What was quite interesting was that he was quite perceptive, because he said, after a few seconds in the car, he said, "Now you're either an actor or a musician." I said, "Well, you got it right. I'm a musician. How did you know that?" And then I said to him, "But I reckon you look like maybe you've been in the intelligence service or that. And can I say that you are?" And he said, "Actually, I'm ex-military." He said, "I'm an ex-marine." So we both sort of sussed each other out quite well there, I thought. And I'm just going for a dental appointment. Dental hygienist appointment, which you got to do, haven't you? Keep your teeth nice and sharp, or flossing and brushing, like we've all got to do. It's a pleasant day in London. The sky's a little bit overcast. There's a bit of blue sky poking through. It's a pleasant day. The traffic's not too bad. We're now in Clerkenwell, just about to approach Theobald's Road. And Simon was asking me if I'd like to possibly share some things. Well, for me, I left school at a very young age. I was a terrible truant. I was a very naughty boy at school. I played truant a lot, got into trouble with teachers a lot, and it's kind of one of those people that slips through the net. And I like to think it wasn't due to a lack of intelligence, but it was a certain amount of boredom at school, and getting a sense that we're being fed quite a lot of, sort of propaganda even at an early age. It's like with history, I think, who's really writing these history books? I mean, we can't even believe what we read in the papers these days, can we? So how can we believe books that were written that long ago? So it had a sense there's a bit of an agenda going on, so my mind would wander. I probably nowadays would be diagnosed with ADD or something, I suppose, because I was a daydreamer. And I would, looking out the window, escaping from school, very fed up all the time. But I was very lucky that I found a creative outlet with music. And so I formed my first band when I was 11 years old with some mates.
What are they called?
That little band was called Roadstar. Okay. And my mate Nick Freeston was on drums, but we had no money, so believe it or not, our first gig was in a little coffee bar in the back room, and we had tissue boxes with elastic bands around as guitars and cardboard boxes as drums, and we got thrown out for making a racket, which was quite funny.
How many people turned up?
Oh, no one. We just set up and started, and they said, "Stop! Shut up! You're disturbing the customers," and they chucked us out. But then we started to rehearse more, when I say professionally, not professionally, but more methodically. And we started to use my friend's Nick's garage, and he got a drum kit for Christmas, which was good. I still didn't have any instruments. I think I was singing and bashing on an old acoustic guitar that someone lent us. And then another chap joined us, and we started to do cover versions of songs, like Beatles songs, Chuck Berry. I think we did, Johnny B. Good. We did David Bowie. We did some Deep Purple, Free, the standard sort of songs, rock songs. And then we started to play in birthday parties, and we started to play in little village halls. So having that outlet probably saved a musical outlet, which then became a passion, an absolute passion of mine. I couldn't wait to get home from school to start practicing. We practiced at evenings and weekends, but that probably spared me from getting into a life of more naughtiness, shall we say, as it does a lot of young people nowadays, you know. And the problem, I suppose, with this country, you know, unless the way that it's set up, unless you have certain academic qualifications at a young age, there are certain avenues which are blocked off. And historically, sports, music was an outlet for younger working class kids that didn't have necessary qualifications or the desire to go to college and university.
And it's funny how it still is today.
It still is. It still is.
When you think of it, the working class ruled the music industry.
Yes.
Because without them, there's no music.
No, and you could say the same with sport as well. Yeah. Same thing,
like
you know.
Boxing especially.
Yes.
Most boxers come from a hard life.
Yeah, they do. Talking of boxers, I was very sad to hear that Marvin Hagler died yesterday. He died yesterday. He was one of the great champions. A brilliant middleweight champion, but he's only 66. He died of complications yesterday. But yes, I mean, boxing is notoriously brutal. Funny enough, I watched a very interesting documentary with not documentary. It was a 60s talk show. Muhammad Ali was being interviewed by a guy called William F. Buckley Jr., who was quite a right-wing journalist, but he had a lot of interesting guests on his show. And Muhammad Ali was on. It was during the period where he was stripped of his title.
Oh, it's not going to war.
For refusing to go to war, which I thought was he was a bit of a hero of mine growing up, Muhammad Ali, and he was quite amazing. But how brilliant and ferociously intelligent he was, and you know, someone at that level of sport being so political and outspoken and aware, and I'm not sure. I think do we have that so much these days? I mean, a great young example I can think of in Britain, sports people talking out and getting involved, is Marcus Rashford, for instance. What he's done, using his position at Manchester United to help draw attention to poverty amongst, you know, the problem with food, school meals, providing food for poverty-stricken families and children. I think he's used his position so well. It's good. But it takes people like that to put pressure on the politicians, because the media are so servile and absolutely useless most of the time, because they're, you know, owned by very powerful interests, and the politicians, you know, they can lie continually and not take responsibility for their actions.
And if you think about it, a majority of football players are working class.
Yes, they are. And Rashford himself, he said he was come from a one-parent family. You know how hard his mum worked to look after his family and put food on the table, and he went hungry a lot of times. So he has a very a deep personal experience of that. But we're wandering off from music a bit, aren't we? Now.
So, what's your main instrument? And you said you're instrument and writer. You're a writer.
Yeah, mainly I'm more of a songwriter. I mean, I love guitar, and I play guitar, but I wouldn't consider myself a great guitarist. I have a certain style because I'm self-taught in everything that I've done. So I'm more of a songwriter who plays guitar and keyboard rather than, say, a guitarist or a keyboard player that writes. There's a difference because I've known some incredible musicians, and they study the instrument, they read and write music. I don't read and write music, so I play intuitively and just by ear. It's
like a jazz kind of.
Yeah, although a lot of jazz musicians can be very well schooled as well. But in terms of, it's more intuitive, and you know, I've got a very good musical memory, so I can remember things quite well, and I can play just from listening to things and hearing things rather than reading. But so it's a message would be, we're talking about school and about children falling through the net.
What would you say you've learned that you wish you knew when you had started?
don't sign any contracts until you take legal advice. Here's the main one. I signed some terrible contracts when I was a kid. You know, you're just great. I was on the dole for years, so you're just grateful to get off the dole. So you're signed. People put a bit of paper in front of you, but that would be the most important thing: is to try to don't sign anything and make sure you get reversion of rights, because otherwise you sign your rights away forever. So even if you're, and nowadays it's.
What's reversion?
So it means that your rights will eventually come back to you. It could be 5, 10, 15 years, but there's a word that I didn't understand the meaning of, or a phrase, which is in perpetuity, which means forever. So I would sign away my songs in perpetuity. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't take legal advice, and I was going to get a small advance that at least would get me off the dole. So yes, I'll sign it. And so I would advise, take legal advice for youngsters.
How do you feel about, surely, I don't know what age you were signing contracts, probably over...
Teenager. I was very young. Yeah.
So surely there's a law to protect you.
I think there is now, but at the time, you're talking about the old music industry, and it, you know, and after a certain amount of time goes past, it becomes too late to go back in time and change it. There's a lot of unfair. It's not just the music industry; it's every industry is unfair. So I'm not crying. I've had a good life. I have a good career, but that would be my advice to youngsters: is just to be wary and be careful what you sign. The other thing is don't let people put you off your dreams and your passion. I mean, there was adverts recently. I'm not sure if you saw that. Was it last year? There was these government adverts which had a picture. Is that still going?
Yeah, it's still going.
It's still going. There was a photo of a young ballet dancer. What was her name? It had her name. It said, whatever her name was, so-and-so's dream is to be a ballet dancer or something. What she doesn't know is her future is in cyber or something like that. It was a really offensive advert, and it upset a lot of young people, because I know a lot of youngsters, you know, I've got children myself, but also nieces and children of my friends who want to, for instance, go into the creative industries, whether it's dancing, music, acting, writing, whatever. And this sort of government directive almost was encouraging people to forget any ideas about having a creative.
Advert?
Oh yes, it was government. Their future, pretty much forget about being creative. That doesn't serve the purposes of the economy or whatever, or big business. Get into cyber, get into...
Sounds a bit like something you'd hear from China.
It does, doesn't it? So this is the worry. There are similarities. It's very worrying. And
also, if we can go down that route, we can talk about what happened the other day in Clapham Common.
Oh.
Yeah, a policeman rapes and murders somebody.
I know.
What do? They beat them for protesting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to look at that.
It is incredible.
So we've got a problem with our establishment.
I know.
Or you know.
And Cressida Dick, the head of the Met, she was in charge of that terrible murder of that young Brazilian electrician, and they lied about it and they covered it up. It's appalling. It is appalling. It's the sort of thing, you're right, that will go on in China. It's beyond parody, because it's so tragic. And they're bringing in new laws this week, aren't they, to clamp down even more on public protests. So whatever rights that we did have are being increasingly stripped away from us.
Okay. So, is there anything else contract-wise that you feel a young person should be aware of?
No, I mean, the important thing is to take legal advice, and then you make your own mind up what you want to do. But it would be that, and, you know, obviously when you are young and starting out, you're not in a strong position to dictate terms. But if you, the other thing is, many people have multiple jobs, you know, to support being creative, because it's tough. There's more and more people in the creative industries now. You know, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
And putting their stuff out there.
Yes, so it's a very different world to the world that I came into when I was a teenager.
But it's
trying to get
started. Easier now, because you make yourself popular on social media.
If it's only a tiny percentage that do make themselves that popular, because there's so many more people doing it. That's the problem. It's increased exponentially annually ever since I was a kid. I mean, I think when I was first putting records out, there weren't that. I mean, there were a certain amount, but there weren't that many. But it's divided. There's so many subgenres, and it's multiplied, and there's thousands and thousands. Whereas it was dozens or a couple of hundred in the early 80s, and there's thousands and thousands. So it's easier to connect with an audience now in terms of your, setting up social media channels. But at the same point, how do people find you amongst the hundreds of thousands of people that are putting stuff on? There's an old saying, more people on the stage than in the audience. That's how very good. He's got an interesting mask, that guy. He looked like Hannibal Lecter, didn't he? Jesus Christ.
So what's the future for you then?
Well, I'm fortunate in that I've got my own company now, and I've been doing a lot of film music, and I've got a lot of creative freedom, and I enjoy what I do. I work hard. Always got projects on the go, multiple projects on the go, but I've become pretty self-sufficient. So I'm fortunate, having had a decent career, length of time, that I've been able to then pick and choose.
What kind of projects?
I've just had my brother's a film director, and I've just scored his new film. It's called Muscle. It's set in Newcastle. You like it actually, because it's a twisted look on gym culture, and it's this. The main character, he's working in a call centre in Newcastle. He's from London originally, and his life is hit a bit of a cul-de-sac. He's in an unhappy relationship. He's drinking too much. He hates his job, and he decides to join a gym to try to change his life around. And then he falls under the spell of this, actually ex-soldier, funnily enough, this ex-soldier that becomes his personal trainer and gradually inveigles his way into this guy's life and takes his life over. But it's quite dark. It's quite a funny film. Okay. So I've just done that. We've got a live album coming out in I think it's later this year, late summer, because I played the Albert Hall a couple of years ago, and we filmed it and recorded it. So we got that coming out. And we've just been mixing that, doing the 5:1 mix and grading it, which looks good. Okay. So I was pleased about that, and just working on various other projects.
Last question.
Yep.
What's the impact you want to have on the world?
Well, I think all that any of us could hope for is to try to leave the world in slightly better condition than we found it. Unfortunately, who knows what sort of impacts that we have, in terms of the damage we may have done to the planet. My God, what's he doing? So, just to let the listeners know, there's a row of red buses, and a man just slammed his brakes on in front of us.
Push up and try.
He could. He's holding us up.
We won't get into it.
You've blown the horn once. He's just not listening, is he? And we've got a Hell's Angel just gone past.
Hell's Angels has gone. Right.
But what they've done to the Euston underpass, they've turned it into a single lane now, haven't they? It's bizarre.
Khan, and it's bloody Khan. I can't stand that, man. I can't wait.
I know.
I actually prepared my vote just to vote against it. I could vote from home. Yeah. Just because I've never voted in there.
He hasn't done much, has he?
I will do this time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know that for drivers, a lot of cab drivers that I spoke to, absolutely, it's become a nightmare, isn't it, driving around London? It's single lane everywhere, dead ends, and it's causing more congestion and more pollution. It's actually, look at this. Yeah. My God.
I think they're laying down the cable for the 5G.
Oh.
That's why if you look at the bridges, the bridges were shut.
Okay.
But if you look at what they did, they only actually done a score.
I see.
Cable. I reckon it's all for this 5G.
But on the other side, it's gone single lane now, isn't it? So it's hard to tell. So the impact of how about you? What impact would you like to have on the world?
I just want to help children.
That's a good thing.
I come from children's homes.
Oh, really?
So I was in care for 6 months, and my thing is everything about children. So I'm building this up in the hope that when young people listen to it, that they can help. Yeah. They can get guidance.
Yes.
When, especially when that mid-teenager that ASBO era
Yeah,
people, night
yeah.
crime, get in the car. I
Yeah.
always see what they're doing, give
Yeah.
them my life experience of it,
Yeah.
so they can probably make better informed decisions.
Yes.
And I think you and I come from the same school of thought and the same cut of cloth, where it's down to a teacher to be able to connect with you.
Yes.
Not a teacher to say you've got ADD or whatever it's called, and dismiss you.
Yes. And so many potentially brilliant young people slip through the net. It is deeply, deeply worrying.
So where can people find you if they want to?
Oh, you can go to the website the.com. So that's THE.com.
Okay.
And they can find me on there and
Are you on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, but I personally don't go on social media. I have some other people do it for me. I don't like social media that much. I sometimes go on Twitter, but I never go on Facebook or
What's
Instagram.
Your Instagram? Is it the same?
Yes, it'd be official there or something like that. And I don't really use it myself. It uses up a lot of time, and social media can be very, very toxic and a lot of negative stuff.
Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you, Simon. I enjoyed that.
Much appreciated.
And
we hope you liked that interview. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to get the latest daily episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economy and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources? Then listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you will hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m.